You don't need to yell. You don't need to chase. You don't need to post about it. The most powerful transformation you'll ever experience happens in silence. When you start focusing on yourself, building your own life, and letting your actions speak louder than your words. Shock everyone not by trying to prove them wrong, but by becoming everything they thought you couldn't be. This is your moment. Let's talk about what it really takes to do it. When you start focusing on yourself, one of the first and most powerful steps you'll need to take is mastering the art of disconnection. It sounds simple, but it's not. It's hard to walk away from the noise when we've been conditioned to stay connected, to stay involved, to stay updated. But here's the truth. Your energy, your peace, your growth all begin to flourish the moment you stop being overly accessible to people who drain you and distractions that deplete you. Disconnection isn't about becoming distant or cold. It's about becoming selective with your time and energy. It's about recognizing who and what deserves space in your life and having the courage to say no to everything else. It's realizing that not every battle needs your reaction, not every message needs a reply, and not every opinion about you is worth your concern. You disconnect not to run away from the world, but to run toward yourself. Most people stay stuck because they can't pull away long enough to get clarity. They keep going in circles because their minds are flooded with other people's opinions, social media noise, toxic conversations, and a constant stream of comparison. Disconnection clears the fog. It gives you the silence necessary to hear your own thoughts, feel your own emotions, and process your life without interference. There's a certain power in pulling back. When you stop over-explaining, oversharing, overcommitting, something amazing happens. You start to feel peace, and with peace comes power. You begin to realize how much of your stress was coming from being emotionally attached to things that never truly served you, from caring too deeply about how you were perceived instead of focusing on who you were becoming. Disconnection is also the breeding ground for focus. You can't focus on yourself when your mind is a war zone of other people's energy. Pulling away allows you to channel your time, effort, and thoughts into growth. You begin to invest more into your goals, your health, your creativity, your learning. You become intentional. You stop living on autopilot and start designing your life with purpose. And yes, when you start disconnecting, some people won't like it. That's part of the process. People who benefited from your constant availability, your lack of boundaries, your people-pleasing tendencies, they'll notice your silence. They may call it selfish. They may question your change. But that's okay. You don't need to convince anyone of your growth. Your progress will speak for itself in time. The goal here isn't isolation, it's elevation. You're not cutting people off. You're cutting off patterns that kept you small. You're making space for the life you say you want, because the truth is you can't grow into your best self when you're still wrapped in the noise of who you used to be. You can't rise if you're always reachable by everything that pulls you down. So start small, turn off notifications, create pockets of stillness, say no without guilt, let unanswered messages stay unanswered, step away from environments that no longer feel aligned. Notice how your mind begins to shift, how your stress starts to fade, how your focus sharpens. That's the power of disconnection at work. And most importantly, remember this. You are not responsible for the emotional comfort of everyone around you. You're responsible for your growth, your peace, your healing. Disconnection isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. If you want to become the person you've always talked about being, you have to be willing to unplug from the noise and plug into yourself. Because the most powerful transformation doesn't happen when you're chasing approval. It happens in the stillness, in the silence, in the sacred moments you choose yourself over and over again. You have to stop giving people the power to define who you are. That's not their job, it's yours. When you base your identity on what others think of you, you will always live in a prison built by someone else. You might not even realize it, but every time you adjust your behavior to fit someone else's expectations or suppress your dreams because you're afraid of judgment, you're slowly erasing pieces of your own identity. There's a big difference between being self-aware and being self-critical. Self-awareness is healthy. It allows you to grow, to improve, to pivot when needed. But being self-critical based on how others perceive you, that's poison. You don't need a crowd to tell you who you are. You don't need a room full of people to clap before you believe you're worthy. You don't need a relationship, a title, or a follower count to confirm your value. You have to build a strong identity from within. That means taking time to understand who you are when no one's watching. What drives you? What makes your soul light up? What are your values, your standards, your non-negotiables? Because if you don't know these things, you'll be like a leaf in the wind, floating in whichever direction the world decides to blow that day. Building a strong inner identity means choosing who you want to be, not waiting to be told. It means deciding this is who I am and letting your actions align with that decision. And yes, it takes time. It takes quiet reflection. It takes painful honesty, but it's the only way to find a version of yourself that you can actually trust. When you trust yourself, you stop chasing other people's approval. You stop explaining your every move. You stop asking for permission to live your truth. The truth is, when you don't know who you are, the world will give you a label. And labels are limiting. They're sticky. They box you in. Too loud, too quiet, too much, not enough. Sound familiar? These are not truths. These are projections. And if you don't have a solid foundation of who you are on the inside, you'll believe them. You'll wear those labels like they belong to you, and that's dangerous because it makes you shrink. It makes you play small in rooms you were meant to lead. But when you know yourself, truly know yourself, something changes. You walk differently. You talk with clarity. You don't chase people. You don't fear being misunderstood. You stop letting your emotions get hijacked by opinions that don't align with your truth. You become unshakable, not because life stops challenging you, but because you're no longer defined by what happens to you or what people say about you. People will always have something to say, that's guaranteed, but their words only have the power you give them. So take that power back, reclaim it by building your life from the inside out. Stop outsourcing your identity to people who barely know themselves. Stop dimming your light because someone else isn't ready for your brightness. You've got to be bold enough to build your identity around your values, your purpose, your principles, not popularity. Because popularity fades, trends fade, even people fade. But purpose, that lasts. And when your identity is grounded in purpose, you don't need to prove yourself. You just live it. You show up consistently. You keep promises to yourself. You hold your head high, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. So ask yourself, who do I want to be when no one's watching? What values do I want to embody every single day, whether I'm being praised or criticized? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? When you stop seeking attention and start developing discipline, your life begins to shift in a way that shocks even you. Attention seeking is addictive because it gives us the illusion of validation. You post something online and people react. You share a success and people clap. You talk about your pain and people sympathize. It feels good for a moment. But here's the truth. None of it lasts, and none of it builds the kind of foundation you need for long-term strength, success, or peace. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't care who's watching. It shows up every day, in silence, without applause. It's not glamorous, it's often invisible, but it's transformative. The people who seem unshakable, who walk with quiet confidence and move with clarity, they got that way not because they were liked by everyone, but because they were consistent with themselves. There comes a point in your life where you have to choose. Are you building a highlight reel or a real life? Are you chasing the dopamine of approval, or are you stacking the wins that actually build your legacy? If you're always performing, always proving, always trying to impress, you're exhausting yourself for a reward that disappears as soon as the spotlight fades. And when the crowd goes home, you're left with nothing but emptiness. But if you trade that need for attention with a fierce commitment to self-discipline, everything changes. Discipline gives you freedom. when you know how to delay gratification, when you can say no to distractions, when you build the habits that align with your values, you begin to trust yourself. That trust becomes unshakable because you're no longer dependent on other people's reactions to feel good about who you are. You've built it inside, quietly, strongly, permanently. Discipline means you work out when it's inconvenient, you read the book instead of scrolling, you walk away from the argument instead of proving your point, you show up to your goals when nobody's texting you motivation. That's real strength. That's where change happens. And yes, it's hard, especially at first, especially when you're used to validation being your fuel. But once you taste the power of showing up for yourself without needing anyone to clap for you, it becomes addictive. In the best way. The greatest flex you'll ever have is being so locked into your vision that you don't care who's watching. You don't need to post it. You don't need to tell anyone. You just do the work, day in, day out. And one day people will look at you and wonder how you did it. And you'll know it wasn't magic. It was quiet, relentless, unglamorous, beautiful discipline. So next time you catch yourself reaching for attention, pause, ask yourself, is this helping me grow or just making me feel good temporarily? Is this aligned with who I want to be or just a distraction dressed up as validation? When you can be honest about that, you take your power back. Because the truth is, most people aren't watching you as closely as you think. They're too busy thinking about themselves. So stop performing, start building. You want to shock people? Don't do it with drama, do it with results. Do it by becoming the most consistent, focused, grounded version of yourself. That kind of transformation doesn't require a speech. It doesn't require a stage. It requires you to choose discipline over attention every single day. And when you do, your life will start to reflect a new kind of power, one that doesn't depend on applause, but on purpose. Creating a daily non-negotiable routine is not about being rigid. It's about creating a structure strong enough to hold your goals, your growth, and your peace in place when life tries to knock you off course. Most people don't fail because they don't have talent, vision, or potential. They fail because they never got serious about their habits. They wait to feel motivated. They wait for the perfect time. But success doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who show up for themselves every single day, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's uncomfortable. When you create a routine that's non-negotiable, you're building a foundation that no one else can shake. This means deciding ahead of time what matters to you, not leaving it up to chance or mood. You don't negotiate with your alarm clock. You don't negotiate with distractions. You don't negotiate with self-doubt. Because once you start negotiating with yourself, you start training your mind to quit. And the truth is, your future self is counting on the version of you right now to have the discipline to follow through. Every morning you get up and do what you said you would. You build trust with yourself. That's how self-confidence is built. Not through hyper-motivation, but through consistency. If you said you're going to read, read. If you said you're going to journal, journal. If you said you're going to move your body, move. Not because someone's watching, not because you want to post it on social media, but because you know what kind of life you're building and you know that it starts with what you do when no one's watching. A routine also gives your mind a place to land when things get chaotic. Life is unpredictable, but when you've built a system that you can return to, you're not reacting to the world, you're responding from a grounded place. You're not running around putting out fires, you're anchored, you're clear. And from that clarity comes power. The power to say no to what doesn't align, the power to stay focused when distractions pull at you. The power to keep going when nothing around you feels certain. And yes, there will be days you don't feel like doing it. There will be days you want to quit, procrastinate, or disappear. But those are the days that matter the most. Because if you can show up on the days you least feel like it, you are training your identity to match the vision you have for your life. You're not just doing tasks. You're becoming the kind of person who follows through, and that identity shift, that's everything. Think of your routine like your anchor and your launch pad. It holds you steady and it pushes you forward. So be intentional. Design your mornings to empower you. Don't let your phone be the first thing you reach for. Don't scroll into someone else's life before you've even connected with your own. Start your day on your terms. Whether it's 10 minutes or an hour, give yourself time to check in with your goals, your mindset, your energy, prime yourself to win. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Your routine should fit your life, not Instagram. Don't get caught up in what's trendy. Focus on what makes you feel focused, grounded, and aligned. You might include movement, meditation, planning, journaling, learning, whatever fuels your growth. But once it's set, treat it like the most important appointment you have. Because it is. This is not about control. It's about creation. You are creating the mental, emotional, and physical conditions for success. You're not leaving your peace to chance. You're not hoping to have a good day. You're designing it. And every single time you stick to your non-negotiable routine, you're sending a message to your mind, to your spirit, and to your future self. I am serious about my life. That's the message that will change everything. Let your actions speak louder than your words. It sounds simple, right? But it's one of the most powerful principles you can live by. In a world that thrives on noise, on showing off, proving points, and constantly explaining yourself, choosing to act instead of talk is revolutionary. Because here's the truth, results never lie. You can argue with a person's opinion, but you cannot argue with transformation. And when you focus on putting in the work, instead of telling everyone you're working, the results speak for themselves. There's something magnetic about someone who moves in silence and lets their life do the talking. Think about it. When you see someone leveling up, changing their habits, improving their mindset, getting healthier, becoming more confident, you notice. Even if they never say a word about it, that's the kind of power you want to build. Quiet power. Invisible hustle. Confidence that doesn't need constant validation. Talking about your goals isn't a bad thing, but constantly announcing what you're going to do without ever following through, that creates a cycle of unearned dopamine. Your brain starts to feel rewarded just from saying the plan out loud, and you lose the drive to actually complete it. It feels like progress, but it's an illusion. Real progress happens when no one's clapping, when no one's watching, when it's just you and the work. That's the moment your character is built. That's when the foundation of your future is laid. When you stop explaining and start executing, everything changes. You stop caring about what people think. You stop wasting energy justifying your path. You stop being distracted by opinions that don't matter. You reclaim your time, your energy, your focus, and that's when momentum kicks in. Because now, you're not just thinking about what you want, you're building it, brick by brick, habit by habit, action by action. And people will notice. Oh, they'll notice. But by the time they do, you'll be so far ahead, you won't even feel the need to explain how you got there. That's the beauty of action. It removes the need for validation. You don't have to prove anything to anyone when the results are undeniable. The business is growing, the body is stronger, the mindset is unshakable, the energy is different. That's what happens when you let your actions do the talking. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means your words are backed by integrity. When you say you're going to do something, you mean it. And if you don't say anything at all, you're still doing the work, because that's who you are now. Someone who doesn't wait for applause, someone who's too busy growing to worry about being seen, someone who understands that success whispers while attention screams. It's not about being secretive, it's about being intentional. You're not hiding your goals. You're just not depending on others to understand them. You're not showing off your progress. You're just focused on the next step. And that mindset, that's the separator. That's the difference between those who dream and those who build, between those who talk about it and those who live it. So if you're in a season right now where you're not being recognized, where your effort feels invisible, don't get discouraged. You're not being overlooked. You're being built. Every rep, every book, every early morning and late night is stacking up. And eventually it's going to show loudly. But when it does, it won't be because you told everyone what was coming. It'll be because you stayed focused, stayed disciplined, and let your life shout what your words didn't need to say. And that's how you shock the world, by becoming everything they never expected without saying a word. When you learn the power of the pause, you're stepping into a completely different level of emotional maturity and personal control. Most people live on autopilot, reacting to every situation, every insult, every inconvenience. Their peace is constantly hijacked by whatever is happening outside of them. But when you pause, when you breathe instead of breaking, when you observe instead of exploding, you send a message, not just to others, but to yourself. That message is, I am in control. I am not easily moved. And that changes everything. The pause isn't weakness, it's strength in disguise. It takes an incredible amount of self-awareness to choose silence when your emotions are screaming. It takes discipline to stop yourself from clapping back, from explaining, from needing to win an argument. But once you learn how to master that moment, the moment between what happens and how you choose to respond, you unlock a level of calm that most people never get to experience. Here's the truth. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every insult needs a reply. Not every drama needs your attendance. When you learn to pause, you begin to see things for what they really are, not what your emotions in the heat of the moment are telling you they are. You begin to realize that some battles are just distractions wearing disguises. They look important in the moment, but they pull you away from your peace, your goals, your growth. This doesn't mean you ignore everything. It means you respond from clarity instead of chaos. There is power in restraint. There is wisdom in silence. There is a message in your calm that no amount of yelling or explaining can deliver. People start to notice when you're not easily shaken. They realize they can't control you, can't manipulate you, can't bait you into battles you didn't sign up for. And that's where the real shift begins. Most of the pain we experience in relationships, in conversations, even in setbacks, comes from reacting too quickly. We hear one word we don't like and we fire back. We feel one rejection and we spiral. But what if instead you just paused? What if you gave yourself space to understand, process, and choose your response? The pause is where your power, it's where you shift from being reactive to being intentional. It's where you remember who you are and what you're building. It's where you protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Think about the most powerful people you admire. Do they panic? Do they chase validation? No. They are composed, they observe, they speak with precision. That composure doesn't come from pretending. They earned it through self-restraint, through learning how to master their emotions instead of being mastered by them. And you can do the same. It starts with awareness. The next time you feel triggered, don't react, pause, ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this helping me grow? Is this aligned with who I'm becoming? Most of the time, the answer is no. And in that no, you find your yes to peace, to power, to progress. Over time, your silence will become your strength. It won't be passive. It will be powerful. You won't feel the need to argue, to defend, or to over-explain. You'll trust that the right people will understand, and the wrong people don't deserve your explanation anyway. That's the kind of energy that shifts rooms. That's the kind of energy that builds legacies. You don't have... Using solitude to strengthen your vision is one of the most underrated superpowers in a world that constantly screams for attention. You see, most people are terrified of being alone. They fear silence. They run from stillness because in the quiet, they have to face themselves. They have to hear their own thoughts. They have to sit with the discomfort of truth. But that's where the transformation begins, not in the chaos, not in the noise, but in the sacred, intentional space you create for yourself when you choose to unplug from everything and everyone else. You cannot build a clear vision for your life when your mind is constantly cluttered by outside opinions, comparisons, and distractions. Solitude strips all that away. It's not about isolation. It's about intention. You're not cutting people off to be bitter. You're stepping back to see clearly, to listen, to remember who you are and what you want without the interference of people projecting their fears and limitations onto you. When you give yourself solitude, you reclaim your time, your energy, your power. You begin to hear your inner voice, not the one that was shaped by expectations or trauma, but the one that was always there, waiting to guide you. That voice gets louder in silence. That's where vision is born. That's where purpose becomes undeniable. You can't fake clarity. You have to earn it. And solitude is how you earn it. It's in those quiet mornings before the world wakes up that ideas begin to form. It's in that long walk with your phone off that you finally solve that problem you've been stressing about. It's when you spend a weekend alone that you suddenly see your life differently. Not worse, not empty, but open. Open for growth. Open for change, open for everything that aligns with the version of you that you're becoming. People will misunderstand it. They'll ask why you're so distant. They'll assume you're angry, hiding, or cold. Let them. Your solitude isn't for them. It's for you. It's the gym for your mind. It's the journal for your soul. It's where you begin drafting the blueprint of the life you've been craving, one that doesn't revolve around performing for the world, but one that's deeply rooted in authenticity, peace, and self-respect. Solitude teaches you to stop needing noise as a distraction. It helps you grow comfortable in your own skin. You stop looking for answers in other people and start trusting that what's within you is already enough. And the more you practice this, the stronger your vision becomes. The fog lifts, the doubts fade, the urge to explain yourself disappears. You're not interested in proving anything anymore. You're focused on building everything. The greatest moves you'll ever make will happen in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're focused. Not because you're passive, but because you're powerful. Silence sharpens you, solitude elevates you, and vision becomes unshakable when it's born from a place of internal alignment, not external validation. So if you're in a season of quiet, don't resist it. Embrace it. Lean into it. Let it teach you. Let it expose the parts of you that need healing, the habits that need breaking, and the desires that need refining. Use it to declutter your thoughts, to simplify your goals, to reconnect with your why. Because once your vision is clear, you become unstoppable. Not because everything gets easier, but because you've built the kind of focus that makes distractions irrelevant. You're no longer derailed by opinions or setbacks or delays. You've tasted alignment, and now anything less than that feels like a detour. So be alone for a while. Turn down the volume of the world and turn up the volume of your purpose. Let solitude be your sanctuary. Let it be the place where the next chapter of your life begins, strong, intentional, and completely on your terms. When you decide to focus on elevation instead of explanation, you step into a version of yourself that doesn't chase validation. It creates impact. And the truth is, you don't need to justify your growth, your silence, your choices, or your evolution. You owe no one an explanation for why you chose peace over chaos, progress over popularity, or self-respect over settling. There's power in moving in silence and letting your results be the only thing people have to talk about. Here's the thing, the more you try to explain yourself to people who aren't meant to understand you, the more energy you drain from